Welcome to Monday Morning Musings, a series of interviews with senior female lawyers. I'm Ingrid Silver, and today I'm joined by Ellie Browne of Warner Media. Ellie, hi, how are you?
I'm fine, Ingrid.
Thanks so much for doing this today. So let's start off, Ellie, by getting you to talk a little bit about what you do and your career journey to date.
So I'm currently lead the Legacy Turner part of the legal team within the Warner Media organisation in London. I've actually been with the company for 22 years, and during that time, always within the legal team, but have sort of migrated through various roles and supported different parts of our business. It's always been an international role, so the team has always supported the Europe, Middle East, Africa portion of the business, which has made it interesting. And I've been leading that part of the team now for 10 years, if not a little bit more. And we, as a team, support really all the legal matters for the business, so a broad range of commercial issues as relate to our business, but also the regulatory and compliance side as well.
Interesting. So you're working in an organization that's gone through, and an industry that's gone through a lot of transformation. How do you deal with transformation?
I think it's always really about being sort of two things. One, a focus on the legal principles. So as a lawyer, there's a core, the legal principles maybe don't develop as fast as the industry does. So I think it's being able to focus on the detail and the law and those concepts, but also being open to the change, embracing new technologies, trying to learn the new languages, the different jargon, and really just combine those two factors. Makes it really interesting.
Absolutely. And you lead quite a large team. And as you said, that team is supporting a business which is transforming across multiple territories, multiple business cultures, I guess. How do you teach your team to support that sort of business?
I think to start with, although the team is predominantly based in London, we've always recruited a mix of nationalities so that we have locally qualified lawyers. So, for example, French and Spanish, Italian, etc., within the team, which also is good for us as well. It makes a mix of cultures and helps sort of bring a wider cultural experience. So I think there is that as well. And then really it's more for everybody. It's a fascinating business to work for, and it's really encouraging everybody to be interested in it, to get to know their clients and get to know their business and ask questions and really try and understand, because as a lawyer, obviously we're there to advise on the legal aspects, but you need to understand the business drivers, the risks, the opportunities, to really give good legal advice. Because I think that's what I've always encouraged my team to do, is it's all about, practical and commercial legal advice. We've got to minimize or eliminate risk wherever we can, but we've also got to help the business maximize opportunity. So there's always that fine balance. So you need to make sure they get to know those drivers.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's always struck me about your team is that it's actually culturally very diverse, and you seem to have this ability to leverage different people's strengths within the team to meet the needs of the business. So I want to switch gears a bit and talk a little bit about you, which I know you hate doing. You just said something about practical and commercial. And when I think about you, I said, I've known you for a long time. And if I think about who Ellie Browne is, I think of someone incredibly practical, commercial, very down to earth, always very calm, incredibly calm in any situation. And I know that you deal with very challenging situations, because let's face it, people only call lawyers when there's a crisis, right? And in a way, I guess you're kind of, in my mind, the sort of stereotype of the quintessentially British lawyer. And I'm always curious, I guess, because, you know, you're very good at managing people, but you're also very deep in the detail, and you have this sort of persona and reputation of being, you know, very easy to get along with and so on. And I'm always curious, you know, how you came to be that way. You know, was Ellie Browne always this person who was meant to just grow into this role, or were there influences in your life that did this? Was it something conscious? Mentors? Tell me a bit about, you know, what are the influences, if you like, behind Ellie Browne?
Yes, so I'm not very good at introspection. I suppose that I mean, from a young age, I always wanted to. I never quite sure why, but I wanted to have a sort of professional career. I wanted to be a businesswoman, and then sort of decided that law was the way forward. And sometimes I do wonder if I'll one day like wake up and think, why did I make that decision so long ago? And, you know, what will I be when I grow up? But I think I've gone down the path of being a lawyer, and I guess, and I have always, from a family background, I come from quite a large family, but we were always and very, very close, which I think was good. It enables you to build sort of inherent self-confidence, perhaps, but also kind of expected to stand on your own 2 feet, sort of get out and manage in the world. And so I think I've always wanted to do that. In terms of being calm, it's funny because I'm maybe, my children would probably say I'm not at all calm at home, in fact, but I sort of perhaps managed to always maintain a sort of calm front at work, and perhaps the more stressed me maybe gets taken out on my children and husband. But I think it is important. I have had some role models, so I've been also very lucky, I think, particularly at Turner, in terms of the people I've worked for and some of the leadership within the legal function, some really amazing people. And one of the things that they always demonstrated to me was that they didn't panic, that you need to always stop, take stock, you know, think about the bigger issues. There's no point in sort of getting into a flurry of excitement or sort of drama. I think that's, again, there's no need to make a drama out of things. You should just stop and calmly try and consider the best way forward. I think it's also, I've been lucky in that as I sort of grew up within the company and learning, I was always well supported, so encouraged to sort of take your own decisions, but, you know, as long as you'd, you know, had a sensible sort of decision path, there was a backing there from the leadership within my team. So my boss, our previous General Counsel for Turner, Louise Sams, who is an amazing lawyer and a really incredible woman as well. And so you always felt, even at the very top level of our legal department, there was a backing there for the people. So you knew you'd never be left exposed, I think, which allows you then to approach problems in a sort of calm and rational way. You don't have to feel worried for your own, you know, I guess, you know, in some companies, I think maybe people can feel a bit personally exposed. And I've always tried to keep that within my team as well. I want them to know that I've got their back, so long as we do things sensibly, you know. Yeah. And so I think that is always important.
That's
and
fascinating.
Trying to minimize the drama. I think, you know, when in a big organization, there's often drama and there can be politics. And I think you sometimes need to cut through that and say, right, let's put that to one side. I'm not particularly interested in the politics and the drama. I like the problem. And actually what I do is I like fixing problems. So in fact, that's what I like to get into and figure out the solution.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think as lawyers, that's one of the things we like most about what we do. And someone described it to me very well many years ago. We like bringing order to chaos and sort of cutting through the noise and the drama and to the issues. That's really interesting. So coming from that standpoint, I guess it's a really interesting segue into talking about 2020 and the madness that has gone on so far and is still unfolding. So 2020, what's that all meant to you?
I mean, it's been extraordinary, hasn't it? And what I can't believe is we're almost at the end of the year. It's very odd how a year where for the last 6 months, in many ways, every day has been almost identical because I've been working from home. It's managed to go so quickly. I find that strange. And I think, I think in fact that, you know, been some really positives from it in terms of spending more time at home. I have quite a long commute into London, and so to be honest, certainly, you know, so through the winter I barely see my house in daylight. Well, I don't see my house in daylight except for on the weekends, and also suddenly I've been here, you know, here at home for more than 6 months, which actually is lovely. I think it's been really interesting looking at how businesses can pivot. I mean, we're again lucky, well set up as an organization where in fact the business has functioned with pretty much everybody from home, including running channels. I mean, it's our technical team are amazing that's been allowed to happen. So we have all been able to work really effectively, which has been good. I do think though that sort of longer term, I do worry a little bit about the impact on culture and the impact on individuals being on their own and being in teams. And again, I'm lucky. I have a you know, nice house. I've got a garden, so through the summer it was, you know, perfectly.
And for the record, for those watching, that is a real bookshelf behind you. And not one of those fake background bookshelves.
Yeah, and you know, so I've been lucky in that sense, but I am, you know, but I think it is a challenge actually to keep checked in with your team and actually just the individuals. And I think what I'm really starting to miss is just that casual interaction that you have with people, you know, when you're wandering into the kitchen in the office or past them on the stairs, you know, there. And so what now I find is that my whole life is sort of scheduled half-hour meetings online, which is great, you know, and the video conferences have been good, but you talk to people because you have a business need to talk with them or because it's a scheduled team meeting, and it's quite a challenge to fit in sort of casual conversation. And almost the only have a scheduled casual conversation is not the same as
no, that's right.
And I do wonder longer term, and I was always hopeful that we might get back into the office by the end of the year, even if it's just, you know, infrequently, but that looks obviously much less likely now. But just in terms of that team dynamic, the younger members of the team, how do people really learn, and how do they, you know, how do they get to, you know, develop fully if we are all effectively working on our own and then just coming together for specific issues and specific questions. The way we used to sit was open plan, which actually meant you could, you know, you could hear what people were discussing. So it was, for me, you know, as a team leader, it meant I had a sort of rough idea what everyone was doing. I could sort of butt in if I wanted to, or say, oh, what is going on, you know. Whereas now I think it's that bit harder. You suddenly think, oh, actually I wonder what so and so is doing. And
yes, and on the subject of juniors, because I think that's something that people are worried about across a whole range of organizations. You know, so often junior people learn sort of by osmosis, you know, just by observing and listening and being able to casually pop their head around the door. Are you doing anything differently these days to try and address that? Or is it still early days?
I think it's maybe still early days. I mean, we sort of have a team, we have a standing team meeting 3 days, you know, 3 mornings a week. It's in the diary, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, kind of drop in anybody, you know, not compulsory, but just I'll be there most, you know, I'm always trying to make that call. So I'm just be there to just have a chat really. And it's actually quite nice and genuinely, I mean, so every now and then it can get work related if someone has a specific question, but it's much more of a sort of check-in and a chat. But
so it's not work related, it's just a sort of hi, how you doing?
Yeah, it's a check-in.
Amazing.
I think it was just that, just so you could sort of see faces. And some people, you know, there are people who always join and other people who seldom join. It just sort of depends how people cope with the, you know, I suppose you've got your introverts and extroverts, and some people want to talk to people. But again, I think what we're not doing, and then within the team, the sort of teams within the team, I think continue to have their team meetings, and I speak to my direct reports and things. But yeah, perhaps what we're not doing, and I think if this goes on much longer, we need to think about is maybe some of the more, maybe sort of more business focused but general chats. I mean, we have team, you know, updates, but as I said, it's that more the sort of stopping by someone's desk and saying, what are you doing? Oh, that's interesting, you know, talking about a problem. And people do, you know, we do all chat, and we've got, you know, all the various tools, and you can text and chat and call and video. But I think that it is still a little bit more formal. So it isn't, as you said, that sort of stick your head around the door while making a coffee, say, oh, actually, I just meant to ask you this.
Yes.
I certainly find where I'm missing it again is not within my team, because within the team, you do have the sort of more scheduled interactions, and perhaps with the clients, again, you'd always be speaking to them, but it is just the bumping into someone who works in a different part of the business who you haven't seen for a while, and then saying, oh, what, you know, what's going on? And that's what we're missing. And there may be, and that's one of the things, again, that's always kept my role quite interesting, is I like to know what's going on across the business.
And I think that's a real challenge for any in-house lawyer at the moment, because as an in-house lawyer, you always want to sort of know what's happening with the business, and people don't necessarily always want to tell you. So you have those sort of serendipitous water cooler moments where you get to find out what's happening, and cultivating that relationship with the business, I think, is a very important part of any in-house role. So that sounds like it's a challenge for you at the moment. Are you thinking about or taking steps to address that? Or
I mean, I think it's yes, and I don't have
the tips that other people will value.
I think, I mean, with certain people, it is just thinking, you know what, I haven't spoken to somebody for ages, and actually a couple of people will say, well, let's have a, you know, coffee, virtual coffee or whatever, but you put it in the diary, which slightly defeats the purpose. But at least it's there. I mean, I also think that, you know, organizations going through change, but I think there is something about face-to-face meetings, and I don't know if we, you know, start thinking about how is it that I could safely, where and when and how do you safely get people together? I mean, even if it's, I don't know, outside, should we meet, you know, say, you know what, I do actually want, I think that I'm obviously not going to force anybody to take a risk, and have to be mindful of individuals, well, personal risk and views on coming out. But I think saying maybe, you know, for anyone who wants to, we should probably meet up, you know, certainly within my team, or maybe others say at some point it would be nice to actually see people face to face.
Going back to the way your role has always been, you've always had a very sort of international, multi-territory, multicultural role. So are there any learnings from how you sort of built rapport in those functions that are transferable into what's happening now?
I mean, I think that building relationships is the key, working in an international organization, and just the same really as a national one. It is all about being sort of open to getting to know people and to build those relationships. And I think when you've been with an organization a long time, it certainly helps, because you have the time to get to know people.
Absolutely. It sounds to me like, I mean, and how could it not be the case, but in a way, everything is in a state of flux right now, and we're kind of falling back on everything we had in place pre-pandemic, and trying to just rely on that to progress forward. But I guess at this point in time, are there any key learnings or things you think, gosh, I wish I'd done this differently from back in March? Or is there anything that stands out for you at this point in time that is going to influence you going forward, perhaps?
I wish I got everyone together face to face when the weather was nicer, inside, and that we were allowed to travel around a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I think, as I said, I'm lucky that the way the sort of work set up, the way the company functions, actually all works pretty well. So I can carry on my role quite seamlessly, as can all of my team. I think it probably is looking at, maybe understanding and looking better at the, you know, the challenges that individuals are facing. I said some people, you know, some people are really happy at home. Some people it's harder, and depends on your, you know, home setup and coming back. So I think it's probably, there needs to be a focus on the individuals to say, actually, you know, is this working for everybody? Do some people need more support or different things? And I hope that as we do look to coming back in, I mean, I think all companies are probably reassessing now their requirements for vast offices and, you know, places that will house thousands of people. But I still think it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that actually we do need face-to-face interaction. And actually, say for a legal team, I mean, we've demonstrated we can work very effectively remotely, but that doesn't mean to say we should never have a place in the head office. You know, we actually also work very effectively if we can be with the people we're supporting, and we can understand from them face-to-face the challenges they're having. So I think that's maybe a risk. I wouldn't want someone to say, well, actually, you know, legal, they don't need an office anymore, they can all work from home.
That's really interesting. And it's sort of been a theme through, you know, the last part of this discussion, if you like, that one, you know, pastoral care, tuning into the individuals and just those informal discussions and the human contact, but also making sure you don't lose that interface with the business as a result of everything that's happened. That's really interesting. Ellie, we're coming to the end of our allocated time, but I just wanted to sort of finish up by asking you, well, two things. Number one, how are you feeling about the future, given all the disruption that's happened, all the change? That's the first question, and I'll let you think about that for a second while I ask you the second question. The second question is, you know, you've had a very long journey. You've been at the same organization for over 2 decades. You've been very successful. You've moved through different roles. You're in a management role. You interface with the highest levels of business, but you also have, you know, a busy personal life. You've got 3 kids. They're almost fully baked, really. One's off to uni next year, if I remember correctly. So you've done a lot of juggling. You mentioned you have a very long commute, and I've always admired the fact that, you know, through all of that, you've just quietly carried on with it all. So I'm going to ask you what your words of wisdom would be to anyone who's sort of on a journey, professional journey, and what you would advise them. So first question, you know, how are you feeling about things and the future?
I mean, my industry is going through a lot of change, and my organization is going through change, and that's always unsettling. I mean, I think it's unsettling for everybody. I think the only thing you can do is be sort of pragmatic, you know, and actually I think sometimes you've got to try and embrace change. This change is scary, can be really scary. And for me, for example, the thought that, you know, I said I've been in one organization so long, the fact that it is changing dramatically, you know, where will my role be in the future is, you know, it is quite frightening. But I think you ought to say, you know what, change is good. And as I look back, you know, it's the evolution of the business, the way things have changed. In fact, you know, it just brings new challenges and new opportunities. And I think you've got to try and focus on the positive, which is the only way forward. There's no, you know, try not to be afraid and just think, actually, whatever will happen, and it will probably bring new and exciting challenges and different opportunities. So
overall optimistic.
Yes, I do try. Yeah. Fundamentally an optimistic person, I think.
Yes.
And then in terms of sort of the home life, family life, long commute, I'm quite good at compartmentalizing. So actually, when I'm at work, I focus on work, and when I'm at home, I really do try and focus on home and try not to sort of mix the two. And I'm lucky that I have a job that allows me to do that. Actually, that it's, you know, I can switch off to a degree. Also, you know, you have to be fairly comfortable with chaos. My house is not neat and tidy. You know, things go wrong. Only this morning we had a mad panic trying to find something before the kids had to get to school. You know, I know
that story.
And I think, again, yes, you can't, I mean, I don't think you can't have perfection in, you know, I think that sort of perfection is you've got to have sort of sensible goals, I guess, and not worry too much, I think.
So be comfortable with chaos, and you can't have perfection. Exactly. I think that's fantastic. And Ellie, thank you.
Fairly messy house. That's what
and a messy house, yes. Exactly. Just look at what's on camera, nothing else. Oh, dear. Ellie, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time out, and I'll look forward to catching up with you soon, either virtually or one day face to face.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Take care. Bye. Bye.